It all comes down to this. This final moment, every ERL region has been fighting for. It's about a lot of things for the players tonight. Building a good offseason in the hope of making it to the LEC, regional pride, but also adding to the LFL supremacy and dominance, or trying to end it. BDS Academy didn't have the easiest journey this year. From having to adapt to the LEC team's failure and changes, roster swaps, rebuilds, the LFL team thrived and found balance regardless of everything. To rise and become as one of the most dominating teams in the LFL and later on in the Amazon EU Masters. For most of the players, this is a story about redemption. This is a story about reclaiming their right to play in the LEC. For Adam, Reeker, Erdote, or even Crownie, this is their chance to prove the world that they deserve it. And as for Sheo, this has been a year-long process of becoming a jungler ready to take on new challenges.
There is one thing you should know about Team Heretics. They've been fighting against the odds all summer long. Back in spring, many Spanish fans had high expectations for the team, but it failed to make it to even playoffs. After this huge disappointment, no one truly believed in them anymore or had any faith in their team. But starting out as an underdog in summer, Heretics played an incredible summer split and went on to beat Giants not just once in playoffs, but 2 times to lift the Superliga trophy. Coming into the Amazon European Masters, the Superliga representatives were once again considered the underdogs. No Spanish team, after all, had managed to win the most important ERL tournament since the legendary Mad Lions lineup from 2018, and people had expected that lineup to win it all in the beginning. For Heretics, it's a different story. They got second in their group and went on to the quarterfinals to face up against Unicorns of Love, where they were the underdogs. They beat them. They were the underdogs against the LDLC in semi-finals. They're here today. They beat them. Once again, playing against BDSA Academy, they are here in the grand final as the underdogs. This team is not just about Jackspektra Draven or Ibo's Aatrox. It's about beating the odds and bringing excitement to the fans. Team Heretics won the Superliga, and they will join the LEC next year. Today, however, they are in the Amazon European Masters final.
Tonight, the LFL is going for another title. And tonight, BDS Academy players are coming for their redemption.
And Team Heretics want to build a legacy in Europe. And it starts right here, tonight.
Specjalnie dostępne, tak samo jak i dostępne jest to wombo combo ze strony Agoro.
Welcome, League of Legends fans of Europe. I hope you're excited because today is the day. It's time to rise up, and it's time for the Amazon European Masters Finals between Team BDS Academy and Team Heretics. I'm Laure, and my panel for today is Jamara and Oaks. Are you guys excited?
I'm so hyped. We've been building up to this, right? 2 fantastic teams. Today's going to be a banger.
Two fantastic teams, 2 entirely different stories as well. It has to be a banger. It can't not be.
Right. I mean, we've been used to seeing the LFL so far in finals, but LFL versus Superliga today, and we never had this matchup in the finals before. But these two regions, with their incredibly passionate fans, can be considered rivals, though. So, where does it come from? You would say?
One word. Technically two sometimes.
Twitter.
Social media,
yeah,
Twitter beef.
Venture, yeah.
That's it. It's just all the banter, right? I think definitely as well the changing of hats over the years, where it was originally the LVP, the Superliga that were, you know, the dominant force, the dominant region, and now recently, of course, it has been all LFL.
I want to say, yeah, thank God we have Twitter, because it has been quite uneven between these regions lately. Many matches between both regions. Spain used to be stronger, but then France took over.
Yeah, I think originally a lot of people looked at the Superliga as the big pioneer in terms of the ERLs. Super strong back in the day. That was the main focal point. But now everyone looks towards the LFL, right? They've been so dominant. The fact that they've won so many times in a row, kind of unprecedented.
I mean, yeah, 5 titles, 1 for the Superliga. Well, what happened to them, you would say?
I feel like potentially at the very start, you know, the Superliga was kind of just ahead of the curve. And I feel like naturally in some systems, a lot of the times, the other regions just caught up. The LFL just kind of became this melting pot for so much talent that has, of course, you know, gone on to things like the LEC and also made their mark in that region.
Not just making it to the LEC, but being the best players, I want to say, we have in the LEC right now when you think of the likes of Targamas or Vitio, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, like Vitio, people would still classify him as a world-class mid laner, even though he's not made it to Worlds this year. That's still going to be at the front of everyone's minds, right? Targamas as well, same thing. The LFL has just been consistently producing these players that go on to do these massive things. A lot of it, you know, we've seen the Carmine called Domination recently. A lot of players come from that roster. Even players who are in the LEC gone down to that roster and done amazing things domestically there too.
But it's not just the LFL, because even though Superliga didn't find the success that was expected, they produce amazing players as well. And again, top players in the LEC.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, a big one is we talk about the win they got, that mad roster where we have Crownie, who's playing today for the LFL, but then also Selfmade and Nemesis, these two big names. We've seen players like El Yoya, like Razork come from the Superliga, so much talent available in that region.
Maybe some new players also we might try and get to meet after the CU Masters. I know that Jackspektra, for instance, is one of the biggest prospects we can have for the LEC next year. But as we can see, there's a lot of history between the LFL and Superliga. And even our 2 finalists today don't meet for the first time. They both played each other in Group C.
Apparently Group C was the real group of death. According, you know, everyone looks at this group and is like, yeah, BDSA Heretics, they'll go through.
Lions Pro Game, 3rd best in the tournament, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, SK Prime as well, you know, tied up with them. And yeah, obviously, as you can see, BDSA swept. They went 6-0, so they didn't drop a single game. And even in the game where it looked like they could potentially lose to Heretics, it still looked like they were always in control there too.
Yeah, I think that's been a big thing. I mean, obviously BDS continued their undefeated streak throughout, but it just felt like even when the game got a bit messy, and there was examples of that, right, where we saw things get messy between them and Heretics, it still felt like they just had the edge in those team fights and are regaining control of the game.
What did we learn about these teams, though, throughout the group stage and the 2 games they played against each other? What was it about?
Potentially that BDSA have a much stronger top side than
top can be a problem.
We'll probably dive on that a whole bunch more later on, but definitely, you know, the solo lanes, jungle as well, it felt like BDSA kind of just had Heretics' number. The only real shining light for Heretics in this matchup in groups seemed to be the bottom lane, right? It's always what we talk about with Jackspektra on the bottom side, with whiteinn pairing up the duo and ensuring that they can try and get some resources and movement going with them.
Talk about the Jackspektra, we talk about the Draven, of course, which we'll come back to that later. But is it all about the bot lane for them?
I mean, it's a team game, right? I feel like the bot lane is the point they want to lean on to carry, but just because you're trying to get Jackspektra set up to be your carry, you know, everyone has to play their part in that and set the whole team up for success.
All right, so let's talk about how teams got there. Heretics got the 2nd place of their group, as we said earlier. And Jamala, you were saying that it hasn't been an easy road for them. They came back from the abyss, basically.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it like this, they went into Unicorns of Love in the quarterfinals. They were the other team outside of the LFLs that people expected to effectively challenge, you know, your likes of your LDLC, BDSA, and they took them in a best of 5, 3-2, sure, but I think the fact that they were able to upset that precedent of, hold on, no one really had these guys down as they're gonna make it. The fact that they are also on the same side as all of the other champions, it's all seed 1s in that bracket, I think really kind of got fans hoping again for the Superliga.
It was an interesting run, right? I mean, beating one of the best teams outside of the LFL, being Unicorns of Love Second Edition. I always triggered to say this one. And afterwards, LDLC, I mean, LFL champions. I was expecting more from my boys.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like LDLC had a rough series. You know, maybe a certain pick they left open that was problematic.
Yeah.
But I think the thing to say is that regardless of the outcome, LDLC still put on a decent performance, Unicorn still put on a solid performance, but Heretics have grown as the tournament has gone on. I will say, this is not the same team that we saw leave the Super League in first place. They've developed over the course of the tournament, which has allowed them to keep upsetting step by step across the way.
We're talking about like a ramping up team right now in the likes of Heretics. What did we learn about the Unicorns of Love series they played?
I mean, more or less that they are still capable of playing through topside through Aibo, right? I think even though, yes, a lot of the talk naturally goes towards Jackspektra because he is such a strong hyper carry that they've relied on very consistently, it's that Aibo, Zwyroo in particular as well, both players that the Heretics can still rely on to actually get out a whole bunch of damage. For Aibo finding flanks on his key carries, and that they're no slouches at doing it either. It's not always just about the bottom lane, it's more for the bot lane in the early game, but the solo laners can take over in the mid.
What about the series against LGLC OL then? Because knowing the team, they were like a really complete team, carries on the other side of the map, but yet again, bot lane prevailing for Heretics, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, LDLC have a fantastic bot lane, so the fact that we saw Heretics able to challenge them and successfully come out ahead really gives testament to how good the bot lane of Heretics is. Obviously, the big point to mention is you gave Jackspektra Draven. I think it goes without saying this guy is fantastic on this champion. 4 times yet, maybe a bit too many. But the thing is, there's more picks on Draven. There's the Callista, there's the Lucian armies played throughout this tournament. The fundamental thing is, if you give him the ability to get an edge in lane, Heretics are so fantastic of leveraging that advantage across the map, and they really drove it home against LDLC.
Yeah, they are honestly one of the strongest teams. Well, naturally they're in finals, but they were the best team to me at executing using mid lane, bot lane priority rather, and actually putting a lot more pressure, not just on the bottom lane itself 2v2, but then onto the enemy jungler, ensuring that you just get loads of information, track them. And I think that also gives a lot more freedom as well towards the rest of the map when you have that level of dominance through the bottom lane.
It's all about finding the momentum at the right moment, I want to say. So do we feel that the Heretics team coming today in the finals is a team that we should be really scared of? Did they reach the final form? Is that what I'm asking?
I would say so. Yeah. I feel like we've seen a lot of growth. I feel like, you know, Zwyroo in the mid lane has stepped up massively. Aibo is obviously a mega veteran, right? Most games in EU Masters as a whole. Yeah. So it feels like this roster finally found like the winning formula for themselves, but they're still kind of coming into it underdogs, right? BDSA still yet to drop a game. You say momentum. This is like an avalanche at this point.
Yeah, and about momentum. I'm scared every time one team comes to the finals or goes through a tournament undefeated, which is the case for BDS Academy today. Let's talk about their World 4 finals. They've been extremely dominant throughout the whole course of the tournament. And it's something that we can say about BDS Academy around all the year, but I mean, they only faced LFL teams in the brackets.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've slain all of their brethren to get here kind of just proves that they are very ready and very hungry as well, right? It's not like they've taken down their LFL companions in, you know, sort of troubling fashion. It's not been 3-2s, not been close 3-1s. It has been very decisive 3-0s. And I think the fact that they've shown a very clear tendency to kind of drop the habits that they had from groups, even from domestically in the LFL, to play towards Crownshot and Erdote a little bit more, instead of just constantly relying on Adam and Reeker and the rest of the top side to kind of take over, kind of just shows that not only are they a strong team in their style, but they're also willing to be very flexible in that too.
Yeah, I think what's massive is we knew Adam was going to be a monster, right? We saw him domestically when the team played for him, but it's kind of the fact that they've gone, look, Adam wins top. We know that's going to happen. Why don't we play for the rest of our laners, and then we have multiple lanes we can play through? And I feel like this adaptability, this flexibility has really gone a long way. And the problem is, Adam, if you give him a 1v1 lane, as long as he has a champion he's comfortable on, which is a lot of champions, he's going to vibe real hard.
I think it was about finding consistency for Adam also, but we have to talk about Reeker, of course, because after the bad season he had in the LEC, he came in strong with BDS Academy, and he's been one of the key elements throughout their victories, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've definitely been echoing this sentiment a lot. I feel like Reeker just didn't really fit the Mad Lions philosophy, but strangely enough, I feel like BDSA have kind of developed into a bit of a Mad Lions-esque style, playing more to side lanes now. It's definitely quite strange, but even though, yes, they do that, I think they've also shown that Reeker, like he did at the very start of the LFL split, is very happy to sit on some of these mobile mages that will just kind of be a wall in the mid lane, and they've comfortably played that style as well. They haven't always needed Reeker to be dominant in lane to then move it to the side lanes. They've also, again, developed beyond just that one single path mindset, and they're playing loads of different ways with Reeker.
I feel like, you know, even if you're not necessarily roaming, as long as you have that agency, that priority, it shuts down the opposition from moving it over and trying to contest. I think he's done a great job of that, just ensuring he has control of the lane, so it's down to his team whether there's assistance or not on the map.
Let's dive a bit more on the LFL murdering their brothers and sisters, because as much as I hate what you said, it's actually true. And the Vitality B series to me sounds like BDS was ready, whether it was on the map, but also in the draft. They had answers of everything.
Oh, and the team fighting, I feel like was just so stellar, right? They have the picks that work for them. You can't really ban Adam out. You can't really get a good matchup. But when it came to those fights, the execution was just so good. And I think in particular, Sheo in the jungle was just permanently setting up his lanes for success. And it felt like you couldn't find any headway when you got up against him.
Yeah, it was complete and utter fratricide, is the murder of one's siblings. I mean, honestly, it was just like everything kicked into gear. And like we kind of said, I think the fact that they came into this Vitality B series and said, you guys normally give Segendo all of the resources. We're just going to go and smash bot lane. We feel like they haven't been having a great time this tournament. And it worked because Adam as well on the top side held his own against Segendo, who was arguably actually not getting resources a lot of the time in that series. And when Vitality B tried to swap it up, come that game 3, it was already too late.
And one of the best players we had in the LFL as well. But talking about bot lane and Game Ward here, I want to say that I didn't see Game Ward improving, I want to say, throughout the course of the tournament. And they wanted to play through bot lane, which is the main strength they have, but it wasn't successful at all.
Yeah, this strategy made sense, right? They had a plan. The draft reflected that. Execution wasn't quite there. And even when it did feel like in some games they found the advantages they needed, it just wasn't enough. Top lane was such an issue. Mid lane was such an issue. It's like you get a minor lead for your bot lane, but they couldn't translate it. It must have felt so frustrating for them.
Yeah, and the other big thing for me was actually just the jungle matchup. I think that Akabane really did a lot to carry Game Ward over the line in that quarterfinals matchup. Not that they needed carrying, it was a 3-0, but I think he was definitely the catalyst for that result, and he didn't really manage to show up on that semifinals matchup, and I just feel like the complete opposite was to be said for Sheo. He was everywhere in that series, and again, just having all of these strong solo laners towards the top side to lean on enabled him to then shut down the bottom side of the map with Crownie and Erdote, so that Game Ward couldn't play their style.
But when you think of the fact that BDS Academy only faced LFL teams, which they've been used to facing throughout the whole year in the LFL, and the fact that they're still undefeated at the EU Masters, how worried can we be with this new opponent and also rising Heretics?
I still feel like they're comfortable, and I feel like, you know, as much as Heretics have blown up and done some upsets, they should have learned. They've seen a lot of examples of how you can beat Heretics, right? They've dropped games. The problem with BDSA is we haven't seen many examples of how to beat them, right? Normally there's no like straight outline, this is what you do, at least not for a while, not since the domestic finals in the region when LDLC took them out. So I feel like BDSA should be coming in pretty comfortable in this one, but anything could happen on the day.
All right, we'll see. We'll dive down a bit later in the matchup, but both teams deserve to be in the finals, and both teams will play only for one goal today to win it all. The stakes are high, and no one wants to fall short. Let's have a look at the matchup today.
Spectra and Eyeball could solve the issue. Something Spirit visits Eyeball.
Literally the moment we say you get in trouble, they do this, but over comes whiteinn, a bluerzor, build out, is it going to be He's revived, and that means it's going to be this 1v3. Randy's got nowhere to go. They tried to give the execute over.
But this is all starting to unravel so quickly right now, because Top are having a bit of a 1v1. It's a flash in, it's an Adam! Are you choking me right now?
This goes in, but it's turned up on the hostile takeover again. Yike is executed the whirling death that lives up to his name, saying, Eyeball comes flying in. The world is ending.
Huge. Adam does have flash, should he find an opportunity. He's going to try and 1v5 this right now. And he finds the back line. Adam shall not be denied. Adam will make sure BDSA do not lose a game at the Amazonian Masters.
We are getting closer and closer to the Amazon European Masters Summer Finals. And now let's dive into the win conditions for both these teams, starting with the LFL second seed. What does BDS Academy needs to do in order to win today when it comes to draft?
Bandraven?
Yeah,
Bandraven, yeah. That's a start. That's a pretty... Yeah, that's probably it.
Not letting it go through in every game. I don't mind if it goes through maybe once or twice to test the waters, right? Maybe BDSA
maybe
feel
is there like a number you think is a bad amount? Maybe like more than 3, less than 5?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, definitely Bandraven, very funny. But I think the fact that they definitely need to shut down the bottom lane is going to be key for BDSA to just kind of hamstring how Heretics want to play. And I think a lot of that is definitely going to come from in my opinion, Sheo, because I think he's already shown us a pretty solid case study of that from the semi-finals matchup with Game World, where, you know, it felt like BDSA 2 versus 2 were maybe struggling a little bit, but Sheo came down to the walls of the bottom side and then turned it into victories, and then also continued to snowball that into bigger team fights as well.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, even if you ban the Draven, there's still other picks that can snowball effectively, and you saw Vitality V trying to make that happen when they went up against BDSA, but Sheo just being on a sharp read of when the enemy jungler is going to be there can make all the difference. And I think, you know, we know these teams have win conditions on opposite side of the map, but Sheo can really be the catalyst to deny what Heretics would look to play through.
And it's one thing to get your laners ahead and helping, but it's also during team fights, I feel, that BDS comes together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, again, comes through Sheo, right? He's been put on a lot of these utility picks, which are built for team fighting, right? Sejuani, we've seen a lot of in this B-roll, Poppy as well. He kind of fulfills the role that it seems that BDSA will need game to game.
Yeah, I feel like he's such a good fit for this roster because, you know, they have strong laners, especially with how Reeker's been playing recently. So having a jungler who's a bit more sacrificial for your team can go such a long way, willing to play those utility picks, not always being on a carry.
Now moving to the top lane, my boy, Adam, unstoppable. Keeps on bringing the flashy champions, the one that we know, actually, for now, but he's been so strong in BDS lately.
I feel like in lane, it's a no-brainer. He's been really strong. In the 1v1, he has outperformed everyone he's gone up against. But it's the fact that even when we come to team fights, like, if Adam is strong when we come to team fights, he will perform and give you so much value for it. And I feel like it's so hard to deal with him because even if you ban away from the meta picks we've seen him play, like the Aatrox, like the Gnar, here, Melonica denied it, he'll just go to something like Darius and then dunk on you. And the problem is, even if you really thin his pool, I have no doubt Adam always has another pick up his pool, up his sleeve, sorry, that he'll bring out and carry a game with.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that he's so willing to be, I don't want to say it, but a bit of a psychopath in the top lane sometimes. He doesn't,
Fine with that.
he doesn't really care. And I think, like Dan was saying, to sort of reiterate the sentiment, I think the fact that he's so strong in the 1v1, but then will bring that to the team fights. The champions that he's playing often are kind of these reset champions, like the Darius, for example, like the Aatrox, where even if you set it behind, all it really takes in these team fights is one big moment for these champions to have their impact in the team fight. So even if they love to thrive with having loads of gold, they don't even really need it to be that effective all of the time.
Yeah, just can get even with that. And we talked about Jackspektra before, and he had some words to say about Adam, actually, the man himself. Came to the desk on today's series, and he joined us on the post show on Thursday. Let's listen to what he had to say.
I don't think you can ever get Adam to just like handshake play a tank. It's like if you pick a tank, he's just gonna go his Darius or something like crazy. So like if you can get the handshake matchup versus him, I think you're very happy. But I think the key will be to figure out like how to not let him have his comfort and not let him like play his game. Because I think if he's playing another person's game or like a more normal game where everybody's playing like Ornn Sejuani, then I think he's not insane.
It's interesting because they know what is coming, and it's just about having an even matchup probably for them.
Yeah, I feel like it's about losing gracefully.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to win against Adam unless you devote so many resources that you're exposing your bot lane, which is typically your win condition. And just because you know what's coming doesn't mean you can deal with it, right? We've seen this so many times before in League of Legends. So I think it's a matter of just mitigating as best as possible. It is Ibo, such a veteran in the top lane, and I know he's sort of player who'll go, look, I'm fine just taking a minor L because I know my teammates will step up in return.
Yeah, he's been doing it forever, Ibo. Champions like the Ornn, the Sejuani now in this meta as well. It's a playstyle that he's very used to. I just wonder, because we've already seen the matchup play out in Group C, it wasn't pretty. How much leveling up has he done throughout, you know, his run here in the knockout stage really is the big question now coming into Adam again.
But given everything and the fact that you know that BDS is going to focus on bot lane and that Jackspektra and the bot lane of Heretics themselves seem to be the best point they have, what is the win condition for Heretics today?
Well, I feel like it's the big thing that it all comes back to is I think the mid lane is so important because, you know, whether you're denying plays on the top side, having someone who can be an extra member there, or trying to play to the bot lane, mid is so important. It's the center point of the map, and if you have an advantage, you can put that into the side lanes and look to snowball them. And I think ultimately one of the reasons people have struggled with BDS Academy is because Reeker's looked so good. He's outclassed most of the mid laners he's faced against. But Zwyroo has been fantastic. He has been so on point, and I think he is a match for Reeker.
Yeah, I mean, you could arguably say Zwyroo has done the exact same thing against every other mid laner but Reeker he's played this tournament, right? He has really kind of been a step above everybody else. It's, will he be able to bring that step above Reeker today? Because like Dan was saying, not only does mid lane kind of control the tempo of the game game a lot of the time, but it also kind of dictates the jungle a lot.
Yeah.
The jungle, as we've kind of spoken about, is going to be relatively important, specifically for BDSA and enabling their solo lanes, but also trying to potentially shut down Heretics, and a lot of that will come from mid lane priority. Zwyroo and Reeker are probably going to butt heads quite heavily when it comes to that regard.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's also about the champions you can pick for yourself and the situation you can unlock for your team. And I want to talk about the draft, because it will be extremely important today when you look at both sides. Which champions are gonna see prioritized here? We talked about the Draven, of course.
Yeah.
But there's other one.
Yeah, I feel like, things like the Aatrox in the top lane, fantastic for both players, super high priority in this tournament. But also mid lane, right? The Azir isn't a pick that necessarily is as proactive as things like Talia, Ari, but it's so good at controlling lanes, setting the pace, having priority, which is something obviously we hit on being really important. And I just feel like there's so many picks where I would be concerned leaving them open. Bans are going to be so valuable this game, right? You can't waste a ban, you can't throw one away.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm expecting pretty much 6 target bans from the jump. I don't
No
think,
meta. Yeah,
no
we don't
meta.
give
I genuinely do think both these teams are just going to be looking to ban away things that they just feel the other team is more comfortable on, right? For BDSA, expecting, honestly, if we see 3 AD carry bans, wouldn't be too surprised. For Heretics, if you're looking to take away, the Azir, things like the Poppy from Sheo and Reeker, these are pretty core ways that they've managed to make it here undefeated. So trying to shake them off of that very comfortable champion pool is definitely going to be, at the very least, a start of an avenue to try and take down BDSA.
You said that we want to focus on key champions rather than the meta itself. Knowing that Heretics is going to be a blue side the first game, what can we expect in terms of prio or blue one for Heretics, but also bans on the side of BDS?
So I think for BDS, definitely probably banning away the Draven. The problem is,
Good start.
Yeah.
do you ban away the Callisto as well? Quite likely, but then by doing that, you're still leaving Lucian open, right? We could see a B1 Lucian coming out from Heretics, so that's why it comes to the 380 carry bans. It obviously does restrict them heavily if you're banning 3 of 1 role, but if they really want to hamper down on Jackspektra's ability to snowball, that could be an avenue, but ultimately, I could see them just going maybe Draven Callisto or just Draven and thinning other areas of the pool, things like the Aatrox if you don't want to be first picked away, or even things like the Renata can be really potent when paired with like the Callisto.
Yeah, I mean, the Aatrox for me is maybe one of the bigger questions because it was starting to get first picked as well towards the end of the semi-finals in the Heretics matchup. So I think that's maybe my biggest concern because it seems like, A, it's a strong champion, but both of these players love to use it and they've used it to high efficiency to actually just start a global snowball on the map.
All right, quick, before we head into Jackspektra, quick predictions. Maybe it's time to break the synergy that we have on the desk, I feel.
Should you want to do it? Should I do it?
Yeah, Heretics all the way, man. I believe in Jackspektra. I believe they can carry. They've been underdogs throughout the whole thing. Jackspektra even said he loves being an underdog because you can break expectations. LFL have had their time in the sun. It's time for a change of pace.
My head tells me BDSA, my heart tells me Heretics. It's that simple. I think that they've got the momentum with them in terms of just consistently still being here, still taking down champion after champion. And right now they've only got one more in their way, one more team rather in their way to become the European champion here in the regional leagues.
That's so cute. I love it. 3-0 BDS.
Okay.
That's mine. I believe in the top gap. I believe in Adam doing everything that takes to get his second EU Masters title, actually. But we talked a lot about the 2 finalists and the stakes of today's series. But But what really matters is what happens on the Rift. So without further ado, I will now give it to the casters for today. Initialize, Trouble Inc. and Nymera.
Welcome, one and all, to our first ever LFL v LVP Amazon European Masters final. My name is Initialize. I'm joined by my brother Nymera, and of course none other than Trouble Inc. to bring you the sounds behind this game.
And you can call us the boys.
The boys, absolutely. And what a story it has been for these two teams, and 2 very different stories at that. BDSA 12-0, undefeated run to finals. Heretics, a lot scrappier, dramatic of a story, but they are here nonetheless.
And you know what we're like as broadcasters, as casters. We like to look for these narratives to tie these teams together. But it's kind of easy in this sense in one way, where both these teams are looking to address some of the unfortunate results that they'd had before, looking to reclaim some form, some of that narrative around them. BDS knocked out in groups in spring. Heretics didn't even make it in spring. Heck, they didn't make their playoffs in spring. Both of them on the road to redemption.
Yeah, absolutely. Both also LEC orgs from 2023. Heretics, of course, are looking to fill in the roster, and there's a bunch of talented players in their EL roster right now that are looking to get that ticket over to the LEC and prove that they deserve to be in the A team.
I mean, that's just it. We've got a lot of pride and expectations on the line for the organizations. You know, for BDS, it's been a rough year in the LEC. There's a chance to redeem themselves in the ERL system. For Heretics, they are stepping into the LEC next year, and the players in those orgs kind of want to prove that they are worthy of that as well.
So that's on the large scale. Zooming into this summer, this tournament, oh my word, have BDS Academy done a lot of the legwork to get themselves onto the radar, to make themselves feared. 12-0. They have not lost a game to anyone but LDLC for 2 months. That is ridiculous. Heretics got themselves a mountain to climb in this finals.
So just a heads up, there has been a slight graphical glitch with the bans. Don't worry, they have gone through, but I'll give you what they are so everyone knows. Blue side, Darius, Poppy, Sejuani were banned away. Over for BDS Academy. On the other side, it was Draven, Callista, and Azir taken off the table.
Now, am I surprised that Aatrox was first picked right here from IBO? No, because even the series between LDLC and Heretics, that Aatrox ended up being the blue pick. Every time that Aatrox was in the team, that team would win. The champion has 100% win rate in semi-finals, and also Adam plays the champion as well. So yoinking it away on somebody like IBO, who's legendary on the champion, really works.
Yeah, and I know that when we were kind of setting up for this series, one of the things that you were very quick to point out is that IBO was like the original ERL Aatrox player. He's going up against an Adam special, though. You take away this champion, one of the terrifying things about BDS Academy is that Adam always has another top lane pick, always has another counter to signal that he's going to win that 1v1. Olaf up against that Aatrox, so this top side already going to be a little dangerous should IBO fall behind. And they've got that Caitlyn for that prio, for that push in the bot side, and to protect Crownie Erdote's laning phase.
Of course, just a reminder, Olaf is Adam's second most played champion of all time ever. You know, I think this will be his, I want to double check now, if I can actually get my numbers up. Quite a lot of them, either way. So it's not going to work for me right now, but either way, he has put a lot of time into that champion. He knows how to make it work, and of course, Crownie's Caitlyn is something they've specialized in a little bit as well earlier on.
You know what? This is what I call the Larson meta. The Azirs, the Victors, the WeScale boys. But honestly, seeing how the semis and quarterfinals went, the mid lanes in general were a little bit idle. It was more about giving priority and pressure to your jungler so they can make the plays rather than I'm gonna push and roam. Talking about roaming though, Reeker has found his all good self of shoving in that lane and not staying in it, but also bleeding his pressure to the side lane. So I'm expecting maybe to see some bans directed towards him.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Particularly because Zwyroo in this mid lane on this Viktor had a ridiculous performance in this Viktor in the semi-finals. And I think you're right. Most of this tournament hasn't been about mid laners. Compare that to Spring when you look at the likes of Seiken, the looks of Ike, all of these fantastic mid laners really popping off. They've taken a back seat in summer.
What's happened to your Ahri, man?
Yeah, what has happened?
Bad things have happened to it. That means that actually we're seeing a lot more scaling damage options to the point where Zwyroo had a 1,100, I believe, 98 DPM game in their victory versus LDLC. And Zwyroo has been relied on to be this secondary scaling carry alongside Jackspektra, of course, on those lane kill options. And Reeker on the other side has been following suit. In fact, they kind of led this way in terms of the meta, in terms of just saying, we're going to scale up on these mages, get something like the Azir to get that prio early, and be that secondary carry later on.
Now, that's something that has been banned a bunch of times right here, has been the Aphelios. And I do not see that pick actually banned. So you do have the severe banned away. For me, the severe ban kind of signals that they're allowing Heretics to take the Aphelios away from them. And what kind of priority bottling do you have to put together with the Caitlyn now that picks like Lux and Morgana have been banned away?
Well, you've already taken away the Nami, which means that you can't go for the Lucian. Nami on the side of Heretics. And in their, particularly their quarterfinals, it was that 5-game series versus the Unicorns where Jackspektra and whiteinn basically showed every kill lane under the sun. They had themselves the Callista, the Draven, the Lucian. What have they got left? The Senna is not something we've seen
like this, man.
Okay.
At all in this tournament.
And there we Seraphine to back it up. So, I mean, this is a lane that was pretty prominent over in NA, particularly, but it's a way of not necessarily playing for lane dominance, but to support that Aatrox on the other side of the map.
It's just to prove Electron, because he was like, they played every kill lane under the sun. The Lucians, the Kalistas,
Have you ever
the
been
Dravens.
hit? If you've ever been hit by a Senna W in this lane, you'll realize it can still be a kill. Oh dear.
Okay, now, seeing both of these drafts, of course, before the last R5 comes through, which is going to be the Soraka, I don't disagree. Enchanters with Caitlyn tend to do pretty well in lane. You can keep the Caitlyn very healthy as well to play very aggressive. Now, what's worrying me from the side of Heretics is that Heretics is usually a team that loves to play for the bot side of the map and loves snowballing the bot side of the map. Now, right here, I do not see much snowballing to be quite frank. I see a lane that is quite volatile as well, not in the terms of that it can get very easily ganked, but it's extremely immobile and it's extremely squishy. So does it get hit from the side of BDS towards the bots on the map where they do have the pressure with the Caitlyn, they're going to suffer massively.
Thing is that I don't think they're going to die in bot side that often. You've got Sheo on this Vi, which can very much go towards bot side and threaten the immobile carries, as you were saying, but there's no real setup outside of that. Caitlyn and Soraka, they'll poke you out, but they're not going to all in you at that same level. For me, this signals something that Jackspektra was talking about in his post-game interview after the semi-finals. This entire series is going to be, can Heretics stop Adam getting an individual lane advantage just running over the game? That is what he has done pretty much the whole tournament. Having a bot lane which can survive on an island allows them to put resources towards top side. I think that's their angle.
I can see that, honestly. I think that's a fair call. And honestly, for both of these teams, it is a pretty similar style of draft. You've got these kind of bruiser top laners, you've got the engaged junglers, once more pick, once more team fighter, you've got the control mages in the mid lane, then you've got the AD carries with enchanters. Like, that's a pretty similar mirrored team matchup, which is not necessarily what I was entirely expecting out of these teams. And I'm kind of curious, with that in mind, whether you favor one side or the other with what you've seen out of the draft.
With Heretics, I'm a little bit scared because they have a ton of scaling. The Senna, the Aatrox, the Viktor. You go into that lake and you've got a bunch of damage. You can actually shield and peel for your Aatrox. You can be a god in this particular game. But what BDSA are particularly good at doing is they salvage their bot side of the map by snowballing the top side of the map. And Orianna can play the 2 versus 2 together with the Vi. You can play towards Adam's Olaf earlier on in the game and shut down the Aatrox. You shut down the Aatrox, you shut down that one win condition.
And that is the huge thing for me, because this is one of these cases of we talk about win conditions a lot in terms of like, if this person gets ahead, wow, game's over, incredible. Something like, you know, your fellow senior Jinx in Spring was a great example of this. This Aatrox is a lose condition. If Aatrox falls behind, you are so sad as Heretics, because you're relying on Aatrox to pass the baton onto the mid game. Aatrox is where you put everything in the early game, and then your carries come online later. So watch towards this top lane. One mistake from Heretics or one piece of real inspiration from BDS Academy can set this game on edge.
As we head on to the Rift here as well, don't forget to claim your August/September League of Legends monthly capsule for all the Prime shoppers out there for your chance to get RB, Mythic Essence skins, and more. Do make sure you get that. It's free. If you got the Prime subscription, you might as well get a hold of it. Important to do, and you may as well get your free stuff.
Yeah, Reeker didn't, so he ends up playing with Vanilla Orianna.
Nice segue. I appreciate that.
He's going for the FLICKR school of thought. For those of you that don't know, FLICKR never plays with skins on champions unless there has been a bug in the champion select. He's occasionally done that.
Not even his own.
Not even his own. No, he did that the one time at All-Stars 2014.
Yeah, there was the Battle Bunny Riven one time. Exactly.
Well, no, so that was the Zed in the mid lane. Everything else has been a bug. This is not a bug on your screen. This is Adam very, very similarly. It's every time he's played the Olaf, just finding these early trades.
That's the funny thing about this champion, also in the top lane. It can find advantages on its own, and Adam as a player in general is someone who has been finding advantages on its own in the top lane. When we talk about BDSA sort of swapping their playstyle from Spring, right? Not playing for Crownie anymore, playing for topside, we don't necessarily mean that Sheo is ganking for Adam. It's more about getting him in a comfortable matchup where he can get resources, where he's warded for and always shielded from his team. So even though Sheo can hover towards the top side, Adam finds mainly his advantages on his own.
Absolutely, and considering this is the prime pick for these top laners, the Aatrox, finding something to play into that is pretty powerful because both of these players have been so damn good on the Aatrox. Having an answer could be a big deal here for Adam.
Yeah, and turns out Jackspektra is a font of knowledge on multiple topics. Because we asked him about the Aatrox as well in terms of like, he was saying, oh, Ibo's really good on this pick. And we asked him, is it just the pick? It's a little bit of that too. Both of these players, though, have been the standout Aatrox players at this tournament of Amazonia Masters, though. They have really, and used it to have team fight impact, to have side lane impact, to have laning impact. It basically does everything you want out of a bruiser top laner in the current meta, despite having not many changes to the champion itself.
A little bit of skirmishing there in terms of just gaining control of the top side river. Sheo will claim that top side Skullcrab, which bluerzor will not have access to. All the while, you can see Zwyroo just heading down towards that bot side of the river to see whether that bot side Skullcrab is still up and available. Will be for his jungler to go towards if he can get there in time.
I'd love to highlight something very quickly, just because look at the jungle tracking. What's over here? We saw earlier in the game there was one just a little bit around here too. BDS Academy understanding that there is some topside threat from the Wukong, Viktor, and the Aatrox, and just making sure the rewards on the other side is something that we often attributed to LDLC in terms of their jungle tracking very early into their first clears. BDS Academy, very aware of this today. They've got good enough wards to support their pushing lanes. Just on that in the bot side as well. Observers toggle over. See, they're really on the same page today. The BDS Academy just doing their due diligence on setting up their safe lanes.
And I'd like to remind people what happened in the game where rewards the LDLC versus Heretics, not necessarily having drafted themselves very heavy engages, no Sejuanis, no Orns, none of these like really big tools.
Okay. Oh, Reeker takes a lot of damage. Vanities might just go down. The gravity field gets the stun, but will not allow a final attack to secure the Orianna's life. He stays alive.
I think Zwyroo had just run out of mana. He had run out of spells as well. So 3 flashes for Reeker's life, and Reeker gets out alive while using his flash. I think you take those right here if you're Reeker. He's shoved underneath his tower for most of the time anyway, so he's going to be more than safe. Now, I just wanted to make a little bit of a connection because right here, I do not see any heavy engaged tools from both these sides. There are no Sejuanis, there are no Orns on the map, so we might be in it for the long run where all the scaling has come through, which actually favors massively Heretics.
In a lot of ways, it really does depend what happens with this Aatrox to me, though, because while there aren't as many hard engage tools in a teamfight setting, Sheo can still make a mess of the map early on, particularly now you've lost Flash in that mid lane. Maybe there's some topside snowball options. You're not going to have flashes for a Herald fight. You're not going to have them for maybe even, well, you will have a second Dragon now, because it's only just being, the first one's only been taken here, but there are just some moments we can see where there are openings now left there for BDS Academy.
Yeah, and for all that Vi is much more of a single target threat, the fact that you've got the Orianna who can basically go, here you go, be my ball delivery system, get into the backline for me, does mean you can add a little bit more AoE than perhaps you would normally do with a Vi. So you can certainly make that work. Add it onto an Olaf as well with the Soraka. You've got some good combos to work with.
So there's actually one thing which we are revisiting from previous seasons and previous splits.
Oh, yeah?
You'll see it out on the bottom scoreboard. We often have these nice little champion advantage things. We don't often take into account the Senna factor, so while we get to see the lead on the Caitlyn there, what you really want to be seeing is actually what's happening between the Seraphine, who's farming, and that Caitlyn. Now, Senna throws some weird options in here, right? Because you get more gold value out of souls a lot of the time, and this is going to be that fasting Senna, not taking the gold for themselves, but if this game goes slowly and they're even-ish farm numbers between the Caitlyn and the Seraphine, that's actually ahead for the Seraphine in a lot of ways. Even if you're a slight deficit, you're okay as that for Heretics.
On a bigger picture point as well, this will now be I believe it's a 33-20 head-to-head score with the LFL in favor over the LVP. This is a massive deal for both of these squads in terms of just regional pride, and make sure this happens. And while this is the first time these two regions have faced off in a finals, it is still a long-standing rivalry, even if it's one that the LFL have been heavily favored in, considering their record over recent years.
And if you're an LFL fan, yes, these teams have never met, these regions rather have never met in the finals, but they did meet in Group C, where BDSA 2-0'd Heretics pretty convincingly in this group of death, if you will, they were in. So BDSA are coming in with a big boost of confidence. Crownie also said that he's not worried if Heretics make it all the way to the finals. He can only, of course, he said, speak from scrims and the history between the teams behind the scenes and what we see in official games. But he said that he's not very worried in particular about this team.
But the thing is, right, and I think based off of the games we had on paper, I mean, BDS Academy just really put them to the sword. Reeker has no flash, though, could be danger.
Sheo's around as well. This is going to be a 2v2, but Reeker taken so down low, nowhere to go. First blood to bluerzor's Wukong.
If you don't have flash as a mid laner in Europe, we punish you super hard. We know that from the LEC. It's been a big point of international talking points around those events. But even in the ERLs, we definitely follow that style. You blow a flash, things get very dangerous, and Sheo is not there in time to respond to that gank. First blood to Heretics.
a little bit not respectful from Reeker right there, because Zwyroo, ever since he lost his flash in the melee to try and kill Reeker together with bluerzor, he's been extremely respectful. He stayed underneath his tower for a long time, which means he did have the advantage lane. He was about 10 to 15 CS up, and if you see him, he's constantly playing very close to his tower, which is very difficult for him to get punished. And even though Sheo was around, and he always has been with every gank that's happening, Sheo really does smell this from afar. bluerzor is the first one in the scene.
What's really interesting to me is that Heretics tried to play through mid jungle in the group stage versus BDS Academy with more proactive mid picks and couldn't make it work. This time with the Viktor, who is not realistically an early skirmishing mid lane champion, they find first blood, they punish Reeker, and they get themselves a kill participation onto Viktor. Reminder, ever since that rework, however long ago it was now, when you get kill participation and farm, you unlock your upgrades quicker. So now you've got that upgraded E. Now you're getting yourself closer towards that Glorious Evolution passive. It means that Zwyroo very happy with their position in the game.
And also, you know, you saw bluerzor get level 6 as that gank was going on. Sheo was still stuck at level 5. That discrepancy, especially for an ultimate as powerful as the Wukong ultimate, that Cyclone is so deadly. Nothing to be done. And in fact, I've got a little word for production as well. We've got a little graphic about Zwyroo's Viktor as well, because it's worth reminding people how disgusting he is on this champion. He's nuts.
1.1k.
Yeah, so this was... yeah, that highest DPM, if you are an LDLC fan, close your eyes. You don't want to look at that number because it's much too high. And that was when Heretics started to actually put Zwyroo a bit more on that carry duty and saying, all right, we're going to give you some scaling options. When it gets to those 2-3 item points, you can be a damage threat too.
I'm starting to get a little bit worried for BDSA as the time goes on, because the healing and shielding will come online from the Senna, from the Seraphine. The raw range that the Senna will be able to play you through is going to be difficult to deal with.
Encore into the railgun. The witch will keep Erdote alive, but I don't know whether it's a Disney movie wishing upon that star does keep him alive for now, no matter where you are. But Reeker was really wishing he was anywhere else. Does have to pop the flash again, but will survive this time around.
But bluerzor has had impeccable timing back-to-back. He catches Reeker with no flash when he's overextended. His flash has just come back online. He uses his level 6, he uses his own flash to take Reeker's flash over again. So the second Reeker is going to try to push his wave again.
Sheo
He's
might
going
be
to get
looking for a
instantly
dive
punished.
hit.
He's going to have a world ender down. There's nowhere to go for Ivo, who's flashing away, doing what he can to hold on. It's a decent Infernal Chains keeping Sheo under the tower, but he'll use the Q to get on out to safety.
You know what? I was about to talk about after this play in the mid lane, the reason that Heretics can do this is because the rest of the map is stable, which is not something that we've seen very often against BDS Academy in this knockout so far. But that is now a kill over to Adam. It is a significant lead over to Adam. That's an important thing to track. As we were talking about coming into this series, Adam has had a stellar tournament. When he gets an individual lead, that is big problems for his opponents.
Problem is, on the other side of the map, every single plate goes down in a Senna Seraphine lane versus a Caitlyn. That is pretty tough. They'll manage to get the Herald a little bit further on. I don't think it'll get a second charge, but that's still a decent trade back for Heretics.
But this has always been the case with Heretics. They will play towards a bot side of the map. It doesn't matter if Jackspektra is on an ever-scaling hyper carry or if he's in these early game kind of champions like the Dravens, like the Kalistas, like the Lucians. bluerzor will be playing towards that bot side of the map, shadowing, shielding, using vision for that bot side of the map. And even though BDSA will always pick these Caitlyn lanes, these are concealment Caitlyn lanes. You always expect that Caitlyn lane to perma-force that bot lane tower, but BDSA have not used it like this. They absorb pressure through that Caitlyn lane, and then they allow the rest of the map to snowball enough until that Caitlyn does enough damage to come back in that lane.
But despite tower going down, despite having the Caitlyn for that trio lane if you should need it as well. Of course, we know that BDS Academy have kind of used it as a different identity, very unlike the champion, what we see of it in Pro. BDS Academy now have 2 dragons. It is a Hextech Rift. Now, I'm just going to say this soul is utterly busted, especially when you have stuff like singular Caitlyn shots, singular like Soraka or Orianna skill shots slowing people down. And as we know, there isn't that much hard engage tools, but having an extra soft engage tool like a Hextech Soul is incredibly dangerous in this first game of finals.
We're left with a game that is about 1,000 gold just over in Heretics' favor, but as we've kind of mentioned, Adam with a little assistance there from Sheo has managed to get himself a notable lead on the Olaf, even if it's not a game-breaking one as yet. But I think both of you have been saying, look, if this game gets to a mid-game with this kind of lead for Heretics, yes, you've got a Soraka on the other side, but the Seraphine with all these people to really back up and empower in those fights, kind of feels like Heretics should have the edge on paper.
Yeah, I mean, there's always execution to be taken into account. Adam, no Ghost, does have ult, but he's not going to be committed to a fight this time.
There's an Astral Infusion to come through from Erdote, but Adam did get pulled back the Infernal Chains, but nothing really more to be found for now. Instead, it'll just be some vision control being fought for both sides.
And very quickly right here, you see the rotation coming in on the map. You see that they have already rotated their Caitlyn in the mid lane, the Orianna bot, and then you'll see that Soraka is sitting towards the top side while TPs are coming in.
They're going to try and defend this one. bluerzor in a difficult position, silenced by the Equinox, knocked up with the cease and the desist. Will maybe have the flash on over, but it's pulled away, nowhere to go. Kill for BDSA.
Amazing rotation from BDSA. They know exactly what the play was for Heretics. They put the Caitlyn in a very safe lane, and they know that their Orianna, if they need her to fight, she will have that TP, and they might be looking for even more. But right now, the entire top side of the map belongs to BDSA, and Aibo.
Don't know if he wants to be there. Has got a world ender, gets knocked up, but is managing to get away for now. whiteinn over the wall will dissuade any further attempts.
And I don't really know why Heretics are going for this amount of aggressive plays on the top side. As we said, scaling and the team fights are pretty happy for them as it goes on. This feels like it's a bit of an overreach. Sure, look for the plays if they're easy enough for you, but you know there are people in force up on this top side, and you still lack those hard engaged tools. They get punished for a little bit of greed on the top side.
You know what I've been looking for? Seeing how both of these teams have a bunch of healing and shielding, I've been looking for all these little pesky anti-healer items coming through. There is no Executioners, there is no Believing Orb yet, and I want to see when the first one will come in. But of course, here Heretics have already seen that Soraka is towards the top side of the map. Of course, Reeker has his own teleport to join the fight, and bluerzor overextended instantly gets punished. And again, we have to commend BDSA for how clean the rotations are. They read the play from Heretics whilst also pushing their lanes and use their teleport advantage to defend their top laner.
That has been a hallmark of BDS Academy throughout summer and then coming into this tournament as well. They are very good at looking at you play and playing these kind of front-to-back team compositions and punishing the oversteps. They've been pretty good at that. They did that very well against Vitality B, actually, in their quarterfinals matchup versus them. Showing it again here, just taking the mistakes when it's thrown at them.
You know, this is a team, as we said, undefeated in this tournament. Practically undefeated in the second half of the LFL, but we'll have to talk about that a little later, as actually we've got some fights going on around this topside river. 4 members versus 5. BDSA are here in force. No Aibo, though, which is a big deal.
Again, traps it down. Look at this choke point.
He dodged it, but he did take a bunch of his HP with it, which means that Heretics cannot walk anymore into this river. Second Rift Herald will go over to the side of BDSA, and we do know that with a Caitlyn in the team, you can actually use that Rift Herald to open up that mid lane. With 2 mid laners that are perma-clearing, it's so difficult to push a wave against a Viktor and against an Orianna. Having that Rift Herald in your back pocket to open that mid lane is going to be very useful.
Reeker now being put on side lane duty. Doesn't have that teleport. That was the response towards that top lane overstep, as we were saying. And this is where things get a little bit weird because, as we were saying, not a huge amount of hard engaged tools on either side, which means that side laning gets a little different to what we normally expect in the meta, because you're not going to have an extra Nautilus or a Leona coming in. We've seen less of them nowadays anyway, but with these enchanters, it makes it hard to shut down side laners. Even someone like an Orianna, which typically doesn't like side laning, is a little more safe than they would be in another game on this patch.
Also, really unfortunate for the side of Heretics. Usually when you play Seraphine, you might want to be on the red side of the map. I'm going to hold on to this thought.
Adam's in danger. We've got ourselves 10 seconds till a Hex Tech Drake, but that, Astral Infusion makes life difficult to kill people off. Cease and desist comes through, Sheo being healed up, but the turnaround heals are pretty damn good as well. Railgun comes flying. That Dawning Shadow doing what he can. bluerzor ticking so low, but Adam gets one in the 1v3. Over they go with Sheo, and now here comes Crownie. Big encore, does a lot of work back, makes that a 1-for-1. Zwyroo coming over, but there's Reeker in the bush looking for a good option to shockwave. Will not pull the trigger quite yet. Jungler dies on both sides.
That is huge Soraka value, and this is one of the reasons why you look at these enchanters. They have some scaling aspects to them as well. Those heals keeping these frontliners in the fray so long, but even then, it does end up being a 1-for-1 at the end.
Very importantly though, whiteinn has just used his Seraphine ult, which means that BDSA can actually walk out of both of these choke points. Reeker's towards the top side of the map, so Heretics have to actually make a move on one member. They'll burn Reeker's flash right here, but they cannot move to get into this river for the dragon. Both junglers were also down in this exchange, so now that Adam is back, now that Sheo is back, they might be looking for more.
Sheo has respawned, so is bluerzor, and they've got the mass transit system of Hexgate to get onto the rift so much faster. No one has taken the dragon yet. Herald now summoned in mid, and we're right back to contesting for control.
Okay, so what's going to happen with this one? You don't have a lot of your ultimates just before this.
bluerzor pulled away from looking for the engage. That Herald held up in mid lane, not going to get a charge off. Crownie in the river. Ibo stepping forwards with a lot of damage to him. Won't find anything more, just some chunks. Both teams a little chunked, but still happy to fight.
And the Caitlyn setup has not been set down. There is one in the pixel bush, there's two in the mid lane bushes, but mainly Heretics have made their way through that river, which means that the Caitlyn setup right now doesn't really favor the side of BDSA. They need to remake their way into that river. Mainly they need to push in first that mid lane wave, but by then Heretics will have already taken the dragon.
The game could break right here. Both squads evenly matched in the gold. Dragon started by Heretics. They need to stop the soul point coming over. Ibo looking for the flank. Big chunk with the Chaos Storm over the wall. Erdote taken out of this fight before it even begun. Ibo on the flank doing what he can. Adam is in 1v4. Does not get Zwyroo. Trying to make sure that it's still going to be a 1-for-1. Crownie gets one. Jackspektra gets another. Dragon secured by the Seraphine. But what about the rest of the fight? Ace in the hole comes through onto Jackspektra. Chunked down to 20% HP. Sheo chokes out bluerzor. Turnaround damage is Sheo. Encore onto 2. Will not finish anybody up though. And it ends up being a 1-for-1, but the dragon goes down to Heretics.
Oh, every time you see someone jumping into the enemy team composition, they're taking their life into their own hands. So much ability to sustain through the damage, to CC through the damage and keep range. Both of these teams struggling to find the clean engage they want.
And I want to keep our eyes on to Adam right here because I do think he got a little bit ditched by Erdote at some point there. So what Adam is doing right here is he's keeping 3 members of Heretics busy, trying to take down the Viktor. If he kills the Viktor, the game is over right here. That dragon will go over to the side of BDSA. And Erdote kind of splits away from Adam right before he throws that heal on him, which means that Olaf still stays alive. It's a 5 versus 4 numbers advantage. Heretics will walk over with the dragon though, which was what they came for, to not give that soul point over to BDSA.
Yeah, it felt like BDS Academy kind of committed to both sides of the fight. If Adam actually walks away with a 1-for-1, taking down the Viktor, that's a good play. It's just very bold and it ends up costing them that dragon, costing themselves an early soul point, which would have been hit just around that 20-minute mark.
I mean, I'll give credit over to Zwyroo as well, who chunked out Erdote to about 10% HP before the fight began, and then the wish comes up partway through the fight, but not when they really needed it. You know, like, some good plays that make that one a very tense fight. And honestly, with how favored we gave BDSA's chances in this finals, this game being so close at this point in the game is pretty fantastic news for Heretics.
It's also in this fashion that it's happened as well. Very different to the rest of the tournament. Sheo can have a teleport to try and bail him out.
It's going to be a 3v4 as the teleports come flying from both sides. Adam will back on out of it though, and it'll just be some of those summoner spells popped.
I'm just loving the commitment for both teams to actually defend their rivers.
Taken straight out. The Dawning Shadow sticks him straight in the grave. He'll be seeing no more Dawns for at least another 25 seconds.
For how slow this game has been, that instant one-shot, I just didn't expect it. And nor did Erdote. Has the flash, but got caught out by the double Seraphine E. Stuns him in place. And now BDS Academy, without their Enchanter and with a lacking amount of hard engage, gonna have to sit and just watch this Baron go down.
This is very scary though, because Reeker still has Shockwave. We've seen plenty of Orianna steal the Baron with the Shockwave. Sheo
is on to Crownie.
Still alive.
Crownie has to flash on now. He's got the Gale Force as well. Now the massive encore. Second half of the Cyclone makes sure this inclement weather is a Category 5 disaster for BDSA. They're burning apart. They're losing everybody but Adam. And that will be a massive win for Heretics that can turn straight back to the Baron.
Okay, but this is the case here. Does Adam try to 1 versus 5 with a pocket heal Soraka onto him, because he can try and cause some mess right here for Heretics? There is no ultimates for the side of Heretics, and Adam has his.
He's got a Ragnarok, he's got a Dream, he's taken so damn low though. Healing's pretty good. Trying to turn around onto him. He disappears. Nothing to be done even with the healing.
See, that's the problem. If you go too far away from Soraka, Erdote cannot walk forward, because the second he does, he's dead. We saw it in the fight just here. You'll see that Sheo and Reeker have the right idea. They see Eyeball along the top lane, but is he ever alone with double teleports coming in from the side of Heretics?
And the thing about these teleports and these disengages, typically in this game, it's taken a long-ass time to try and kill someone. They don't die quick. Then this happens. This is why you're looking at all these big cooldowns and you see everyone back away from the teleports. You think that the fight's off. The Erdote game being caught off like that, though, is not one of these tanky frontliners. That puts BDS Academy into real disarray. And in this first game, Heretics are swinging some heavy punches.
And mind you, we talked about how Heretics love fighting through these choke points. Look at that Seraphine ult, reaches all the way to the back line. And even though Sheo's trying to take the gate, and he's like, screw it, I'll fight, nah, I'm out. And Adam is just left there. But then we have Erdote still coming in. And again, yes, Soraka is a great pocket heal, but if you overextend too much, you can't reach you, so you will just die to enemy team.
Gonna try and turn around Zwyroo. Caught out, doing what he can, but remember, there's no flash for 3 seconds. He's got to stop, which buys some time. Ivo to the backside. Adam is dead. Zwyroo is trading back, though, but Crownie caught in no man's land, doing what he can. On the other side of the fight, it's a big fight onto Sheo, doing what he can to stay alive, but there's nothing to be done. Heretics! It was supposed to be unexpected, but no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. They're here to take game 1.
The LFL are the gods of the ERLs, but what's a god to a heretic? These fights are far too split for BDS Academy to keep everyone grouped up, to use that shockwave. You can say that of both team compositions, but in this one, Aibo lives to run down the support. They take the split fight.
Heretics can actually finish the game right here. They have the Baron buff, but they're gonna choose to take that gate out. Take what you came for. It is going to be that mid lane inhibitor that's gonna be permanently bleeding for BDSA. And if we look at this fight against Zwyroo, you think he's been caught? He's actually baiting. They have another teleport coming in. You thought they used them all topside. It wasn't the case. He buys so much time with the crown. He buys so much time with the stopwatch. Seraphine then comes in with heals and shields. The Senna ult comes through, and he survives so long that the second that bluerzor and Aibo come into this fight, they just split BDSA apart and they just kill them all.
I think you can see the real difference between how good of a fight these top laners are being allowed to have, because Aibo is able to chase down the support, able to keep hitting targets, and these champions, the Olaf and the Aatrox, they only get to live if they're hitting stuff. That's how they sustain. As soon as the stopwatch comes out, Adam can't fight. And Heretics, they don't have that much threat out on them if the Olaf's down.
Dare I say, Aibo on Aatrox is 100% win rate. The guy picks the champion, he wins the damn game. This is how strong he is on his OG pick, if you will, back from 2020 when he was playing Kick. This is the pick that he took them all the way to the semifinals with. And right here in Heretics, 5-0 record, looking to make it a 6-0 onto the champion. Maybe might be something that BDSA might have to look into banning or even picking themselves.
Especially given the narrative and what we all expected about this top lane matchup. Adam always having another counter pick. Adam being the best top lane in the tournament. And you know what? Based off this tournament, you can't really disagree with it. But on this day, this matchup, game 1...
Aibo would like to have a chat.
Yeah, well, Aibo would like to have a chat, and Adam didn't get as much out of the laning phase as potentially we had expected. And now the Olaf struggling to function in these team fights in a way that we've not seen in this tournament so far.
Remember, they're both from Group C, these teams, and BDSA 2-0'd Heretics in relatively commanding fashion. They have not dropped a game this tournament. They have not dropped a game to anyone not named LDLC for 2 months. This could be their first loss in a very long time. Game's not over yet, but it is looking oh so shaky. And they're trying to hold on to this top lane tier 2, and I don't know how doable that will be.
I think BDSA have to pray that Heretics overreach underneath the tower and the Soraka heal start coming through. A big Orianna shockwave coming in from Reeker that now that he has his 2 items. But then on the other side of Heretics, again, the shielding, the healing, the crown onto Zwyroo, the stopwatch on the side of Aibo is so difficult. You have to kill them twice.
They're going into the back line. Erdote chunked out Aibo on top of him. It's a wish that means nothing. The store falls out of the sky, and it's a meteorite crashing down on BDSA's head. Adam alone survives, and Heretics will end the streak 12-0 to 12-1. Welcome to the finals, Heretics. You're here to play.
And let me remind you what happens to LFL teams that go to the finals undefeated. LDLC Spring 2022 undefeated. BDSA 2022 Summer undefeated. Heretics are gonna take game 1.
It's a fresh lick of pain. Heretics not playing towards the bot side. They go top. They go to the Nexus.
And for its squad, a team, an organization that is joining the LEC, it's a great start to an extraordinary Amazon European Masters campaign. 1-0 in the finals so far.
That is a heck of a statement, because there are so many things about this game. One, the Heretics didn't play the way we expected them to. It was meant to be a scaling comp, but they played through this late game stuff. This is still a relatively quick game. They didn't let up on the pedal, and while there was a misstep here or there, particularly in that top lane where they lost a couple of kills trying to dive that top lane tier 1, this was still a commanding victory from our perceived underdogs. They smashed game 1.
I'm actually a bit disappointed in BDSA because we already know they kind of like suck their bot lane. They're like using them as bait to try to snowball towards the top side of the map. I didn't see any ganks. I didn't see trying to snowball that Olaf. And yes, Adam is great at getting his own leads, but with how much scaling there was on the side of Heretics, it's not just enough to get 100, 200, 500, 1k gold lead. They need to smash that top side of the map. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. I think BDSA need to go over to the blue side, get that Sejuani, get that Poppy onto Sheo, get the ganks rolling.
They tried something there with the Olaf. It did not work. And a squad that was undefeated in groups, 3-0'd quarters, 3-0'd semis, were expected in a lot of ways to 3-0 finals. Well, the script gets torn up one more time, doesn't it? The Heretics live up to their namesake and come out ahead. Gotta start believing maybe some of those fans out there. The LVP versus LFL is a banger, and it's only got more to go. 1-0 to the Heretics as they strike first, breaking that win streak from BDSA. Undefeated no longer, but we'll have to break down that game after the break. Go absolutely nowhere, rather. We've got way more to come.